So this is an introduction to Nnenne. This slide tells you about her life, but doesn't tell you about what she's doing at the moment. She's now living in Springfield, Missouri. She's been there since last July. She's originally from Nigeria, from Imo State, and she has over 7 years experience in teaching English and also in family counselling. So she has a degree in psychology, and she really likes bringing these two areas together of teaching and family counselling. So as she says on the slide here, she's not your typical English teacher, and she has all these other strings to her bow: the cake decorating, pictures of cakes there, bridal and event management expert, passionate volunteer, family advocate, and a third-time grad student where she's focusing on education equity. So I'd like to introduce Nnenne Ben-Ekechukwu. Over to you, Nnenne, for your webinar.
Thank you so much, Linda, and it's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everyone. And just like she said, my name is Nnenne Ben-Ekechukwu. And yes, I love to teach, and I try to merge all my passion together into delivering some kind of teaching and also learning event in my life. Right now, I am I'm doing a graduate degree program in applied second language acquisition, and I also have a master's in education as well as psychology. And now here I am, still pursuing my degree. I love to learn, and also I like to share what I do. And today we will be looking at how we can leverage. So when it comes to low resource technology, how can we use that to serve our population? And at the end of today's webinar, I hope that we're able to learn about some of these low-tech resources and see how I have used toll-free hotlines, and of course, how we can use call-in radio shows. And it wouldn't be complete if you do not share your ideas on low-tech resources. I'd like to hear from you, or the audience, those that have used this or those that intend to use it, or how you think we can all learn together. Collaborative learning is always something that I look forward to, and I hope that you keep the comment section active. I will try to look in as much as I can to see if there's something that needs my attention. Let's delve in. Thank you very much, everyone that is here. I see all the people joining in from different parts. Thank you very much, Ghana, Nigeria, everywhere. Really appreciate that you're here. Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which can be used to change the world. Sometimes I look around and see how education itself has, taken some kind of wave. Sometimes you could say it's topsy-turvy, it's gone from here to here. But one thing that has been consistent is that in one way or the other, education is being, is being taught, is being kind of, there's a movement on what should be taught. And if we go, far down to the north, where there is a lot of land, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of people, a lot of things happening at the same time, you would see that one thing that has been consistent in terms of delivering education is the use of what you may call some kind of mobile assisted language learning. And we'll be looking a bit into that and how powerful this weapon called education can be. Gone are the days when people influenced each other with swords and armory. Now, education and the battle in the mind is what we are using, not just as teachers, but as trainers to influence people around us. So in the chat box, I would like us to quickly share, and I will try my best to look into the chat box. Like I said, what is or has or was your biggest challenge getting low-tech resources for your classes? So I'd like to hear from you all in the chat box. Please share, what is your biggest challenge getting low-tech resources for your classes? Or what was, if you already have some kind of low-tech resource, what was your biggest challenge? Or what has been, if you have left that stage and you're now maybe in high-tech, what has been your challenge? So I would like to see your comments in the chat room. Yes. Time. Thank you very much for that. Time has been a major factor for someone in the chat box. All right, let me see. Money. Yes. Financial, because we teach in a deep village. Thank you very much. Yes, money. Money is something that has been a challenge. So the key word there is the challenge. What has been the challenge? And we would all agree, especially for those in, remote areas, it could be challenging getting materials. It could be challenging getting the finance. It could also be challenging. Someone said connectivity. That's so true. Power supply. Interesting. Lack of support from the owner of the school. We would look at that as well. We're going to look into that. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yes, these are all challenges, very real. Realistically speaking, these are things that we all get to experience once in a while. So let's look at these two pictures right here. So this is a picture of two teachers teaching ICT. One is teaching with a class that is well equipped. Everybody has a PC to his or herself. And on the second slide, we can see another teacher also trying to teach the same ICT, but now with a twist. He's trying to teach teach ICT using chalk and a blackboard. So look at these two pictures and let me know which one works best for you. I'll be in the chat box looking as well. Okay, somebody is saying financial barrier was a problem. Okay. So look at these two pictures. Let me know which one works best for you. Which setting works best for you? I would hold on a bit and see what you all have to say in the chat box. The first one with the use of computer. Thank you very much. The first one, of course. The picture with the electronic, the digital setting works best. Thank you very much for that. Apparently, this teacher in, of course, my right hand, the first one, yes, thank you very much. The first one is already set up. There is that comfort, that convenience of having the computers. But then again, how realistic is this situation? How realistic is this, especially for those that have put in the chat box that they have to teach in, very interior or far villages? The one with the computer is the ideal situation. But realistically speaking, this teacher didn't have to do much. Of course, the teacher was well equipped, came to the class, had all of the resources provided. But for most of us, our reality is the picture on the right. But guess what? How many times do we get to celebrate this kind of creativity? When you get lemons and you're thrown into the village, how much of it can you make a lemonade out of? That's what is happening with Mr. Richard here, who students had to take an ICT test. But rather than say, I can't wait until I get, or I have to wait until I get picture A, he decided to do something different. And that's how creative a lot of teachers are with the resources that they have. And I want to just take 1 minute to celebrate every teacher that has been putting in that passion, putting in that work to make sure that irrespective of the limited resources that they have, they are still able to show up and make the best of what they have. In the chat box, please take 1 minute to say something nice about yourself as a teacher. Say something nice about yourself as a teacher. Most times we do not get to appreciate all that we do as teachers. So please feel free to say something good. Appreciate yourself in the chat box. I want to see it. I want to see you appreciate yourself in the chat box. We have a lot of brilliant teachers. Yes, we love you, all the teachers, even though you don't get a lot of it, but you teachers do a whole lot. Some teachers are going through so much, and when they get to the gate of their school, they have to pull out that crown of the pressure that they feel and go in there to show up for the kids. We all want the picture on the left as an ideal situation, but you cannot begin. I know a lot of you have even been in that situation where you get to use limited resources and still show up and teach a lot of teachers. Thank you very much. The resilience of teachers, the innovation of teachers, the creativity, the sunshine. I love that clap. Yes, every teacher in this room and that is going to listen to this webinar afterwards, please, you are highly appreciated. People say a teacher's reward is in heaven, but I know that the universe is aligning to create that that's true recognition that you deserve. Thank you, everyone, for all you do and for impacting the world with your value. Thank you, everyone. Awesome. So just like I was saying, this is the ideal situation. As much as we want all our students to have a fancy ICT room, a lot of us have to do what Mr. Richard here was doing. Some of us don't even, just like you said, we don't even have funding. There's no funding for all of these things, but the world has left that part. But guess what, guys? It's not just something that is, peculiar to Africa. Right now, in the States, I privileged to work with a lot of refugee families. And when they come in to the States and we have to do some kind of assessment test to know their level of English or their English level. Most of them do not want to have anything to do with IT. They don't want computers. They want it in pen and paper form. They want it very traditional style. But does it mean that they don't have some kind of knowledge? I've had, I've had senior citizens in my class. The oldest I've had was a couple, a professor and his wife. They were over 80. They had some kind of, they had some knowledge of English language, but they still needed, day-to-day English to get themselves through in the States. And we, put them in this fancy room. Of course, your guess is as good as mine. They didn't do well because they were not used to, the wife is an accountant. She was used to pen and paper, style of accounting. And then we give her this laptop and she's not happy with her results. Does it mean that we have given a test that is equitable? Or we've given an equal test because everybody in the States, has to have some form of IT knowledge. So that leads me to my next slide. I love this picture a lot. I really like to, make reference to this. So here is a group of animals about to take a test. And the instructor here says for a fair selection, everyone has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. How do you think the elephant is going to climb the tree? How would the penguin climb the tree? How would the monkey climb the tree? Of course, the tree is there. It doesn't change. It doesn't grow taller or shorter because of the size of the animal. No. Just like Albert Einstein said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will grow up thinking that it's a stupid fish. That's how it is with a lot of our students. Let's not forget that just like the teacher has to deal with a lot of things, the student that is coming into your class has to deal with a lot of bias. Some of them, have this idea that they will never be good enough. There's also the fear of the unknown. What if I don't make it? What if I made the class jester? What if I made the class clown today? But amidst all of this challenge, a motivated learner will always spring forth. Amidst all of this challenge, once there is a motivated learner, he or she would find a way to maneuver through all of this situation. And so it is with the teacher. Once there's a teacher that shows up with the passion, the students will definitely align. Okay? So when it comes to the digital divide, digital divide, which is an unequal access to technology, doesn't just impact 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000. It impacts billions globally. it's not a continent thing, it's a global thing. And it is driven by factors just like some that we have mentioned in the chat box. Of course, education, location, age, finance, a lot of things that affects the digital divide. A study that was carried out recently, as recent as 2020, says that only 53% of the world's population have access to internet. So what happens to the other 47%? And that's where a lot of our students and our classrooms and our environment falls into. So if we do not have that internet access, does it mean that we have been cut out? Does it mean that we do not have access to education? On the contrary, if you go to the northern part of Nigeria, one of the major ways of accessing any kind of thing is through radio. It's difficult for you to go to the north and not find one household that doesn't have a radio station. A lot of you that are from the north can attest to that. And in that case, how can we leverage that resource that they have to still deliver on all communicative skills, whether it's reading, whether it's listening, whether it's writing, whether it's speaking? How can we do that? So this is a study to buttress that point that was conducted by the UNESCO that shows that get this, 1/4 of the poorest 20% of households in low and middle income countries own at least a mobile phone. So the green dots you see there represents how much mobile phones you can find in these homes. And of course, the purple dot there shows how much radio you can find. So whether it doesn't have to be, this is not fancy phone, sometimes it's just low range phones or even regular Android phones. They have access to this. So how can we use both the mobile phone and the radio to still pass our message across? You can see that when it comes to television, it's not too common. Not many people have access to television. So that can itself be a hindrance if you're looking at TV shows. Of course, there are educational TV shows around the world, but then in some areas where there is that limitation of internet access, you can make do with the mobile phone and of course the radio. So how? Now we're segueing into the how to. How do you use radio and mobile phone? So in the chat box, can you share your experience if you have ever used the radio as a means of communication or teaching, or if you've used mobile phones? Please, I'll be looking at the chat box one more time. If you have used this, you can just share your experience, how you used it. I will be looking at the chat box. Yes, I think you would have access to the recording. Somebody was asking in the chat box if you would have access to that. Yes, I played the news. Absolutely. This is a good way to help students develop their listening skills. You're listening for the gist. You're listening, you're checking to see if they notice the details of the news. I mostly download my pictures, rhymes, and worksheets. Interesting. Yes, loudspeakers and sometimes radio. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your experience on how you use these things. All right. So if you remember during the pandemic, I would say, it's brought out the creative side in a lot of us. For many people, their schools were cut off. In some parts of Africa, even when we had the Ebola crisis, so many students didn't have to go to school. But then again, people got really creative. People got really creative during the Ebola season. People got creative during the pandemic season. And we began to see that sometimes comfort restricts us. Just knowing that I can always show up to class, there would be a board, there would be students, there would be a setting and all of these things kind of, switched. We got to have our minds creative during the pandemic season. Yes. All right. So how can we use radio for class activities? These are things that I have tried, and I would say it was very efficient. It was efficient. And this is not to say it didn't have its downside. Of course it did, but for the most part of it, I would say it was helpful. During the post-pandemic, I was fortunate to work with a community school in Lagos, and this kind of inspired a lot of things that I did later on. So calling radio shows where you can have your students call or have them listen for some kind of information is very important. But it doesn't just happen overnight. There has to be a buy-in. This is where content creation comes in. This is where putting out proposal comes in. As a teacher, most times we do not, really take advantage of all of the resources that we have in our disposal. I remember I had to drive with some of my friends to, actually from Lagos, we had to go to somewhere in a neighboring state to go and talk to a radio station there. And luckily for us, because it was closer to Lagos, they could still get signals from the radio station in Lagos. So having the content, working with your students to create content, putting up a proposal and taking it to a radio station, sometimes you are lucky enough to get their buy-in. And these are some of the things that we were able to do, targeting different levels, because we had different people that we were catering to. So we had interactive radio content where we had some students go into the studio and talk, share different things that they had learned in class. Sometimes it was grammar, sometimes it was just daily content-based conversation. And then we also had situations where they had to ask the parents. So this one, I was able to incorporate it here. But in this situation, we didn't use a radio station. We did it as a class-based task. So what I do is, like I said, I'm fortunate to work with a lot of refugees here. So we have them come to school from Monday to Thursday, and they come with their families. So what we do is the children are in a class learning, the adults are in another class learning. We teach them how to communicate with their kids. How do you tell your child to come and have dinner or have lunch or have breakfast? So we kind of simulate or role model in class. Oh, she's calling you. Okay, pick the call. What are you saying? We have them ask questions. What are you eating? What are you having for dinner? What are you having for breakfast? Did you lay your bed? Did you take a shower? Did you flush the toilet? Just little practice like that. And then we had life learning labs. So in the classroom, we would have make up some kind of studio setting just for them to have that ambience of what it feels like to be an on-air personality. And they loved it. They loved the idea that they were preparing for a project, just to take their minds off all of the 1 million things that they had to do around, just come into class and do that activity. And this is something you can do anywhere, having that role play or simulation just to create an idea of what it looks like. But then again, what kind of shows, or calling radio shows, what can you do? How can you set it up? What do you need, and how do you proceed? So let's look at how to set up this activity. So like I said earlier on, if your school has no funding, please, it's not a big deal. All right. If your school doesn't have access to any closed radio station, or you do not know how to go about writing proposals, it's not a big deal. You can introduce your students to recording tools. Like I said, that's what I use currently in my class. Tell them about the recording tool that they have in their phone. Most people use their phone just to take calls and respond to messages, but most Android phones have at least a recording tool. And sometimes you can also get, as a teacher, if your students do not have a phone or a mobile phone in their class, you can use yours. And somebody can tell me, oh, we have troubles with battery, or we have troubles with electricity. There's a small recorder. If you've taken note of what journalists use, most times they have this small audio recorder that they use. Sometimes you can plug it, or sometimes it uses batteries. This is a very good tool that you can use in your class. Just have them talk and see what they sound like. But if you want to take it a bit, a little bit higher, you can use your phone and maybe plug in some editing software so they can feel like they can know what it feels like to be, like I said, an OAP. Personally, you doing this in class just kind of makes everybody feel so serious. Like they are coming, they're practicing their script, and it's nothing too technical. It's nothing too technical, just simple. Sometimes we have them, I would maybe write out wrong. We will practice, for instance, simple past tense. And then we would have everybody listen to me saying those things in the using wrong irregular or regular verbs. And you see how conscious they are. They're listening to, which ones are regular verbs, which ones are irregular verb. I can say, oh, I went to the party and I eated, something interesting. And I see their faces light up. They're like, they're writing it. And one thing that we also like to do in class is we kind of incorporate some kind of cultural inclusive classes. So for instance, if you um, if you have a stomach upset, what kind of home remedies would you use in your home? And it gets them thinking, oh, what do we call lemon in our country? And they're trying to describe it. So sometimes I tell them, teach us, tell us how you say lemon in your language. Tell us how you say a cold towel, or how you say what's it called, ginger or garlic in your country. And just being able to try to describe it helps them build their some cognitive skills as well. And if you want to take it a bit higher, you can create a class YouTube channel, have them log on. That's if you want to go a little bit, but then you can still keep it within the comfort of recording with a recording tool. The idea is for you to make the class as creative as possible. So that's that for the setup. And then what you need, of course, if you want to make it more like create the radio ambience, create the classroom ambience, you can get a microphone, something like this one that I am using. You can get the regular earpiece, something that just kind of takes away all of the distraction. But then you want to model in your class. You want them to know when you have that time. Somebody might ask the question, how long does it take? Like I said, sometimes it is a class project. We leave it to the end of the class, but we use 5 minutes. We use between 5 to 10 minutes of the end of the class to practice our script. So have them get used to talking on the microphone like this. You can also get some editing software. These editing softwares are free. Audacity is free. Ocean Audio is free, and hosting. So you can have them host on your mobile phone if you don't have access to a radio program, or you don't get funding to get airtime on radio. Have them do it on their phone. And of course, craft concise talking points. Practice makes you get better. It makes you perfect what you're doing. Help them develop short script outlining your key points for different discussion segments. So we also share statistics of how radio has been impactful in the North. We also share statistics of how it has helped students to deal with social isolation. Most times people are not comfortable talking, and which is good. Some students do not like to talk no matter how much you try. For those students, what I do is I assign them the role of director. They love it. I don't want to talk. I like to be backstage. Hey, help us edit the script. Look through it, work with this person to see how you can make this better. And we will still share some more of what we do as we proceed. Okay. And of course, quotes to enhance your contribution. Share with them different quotes. I love to have them think or refine or say, come up with quotes that they think they can relate to. I would share more of that as we proceed. And of course, how do you proceed? Model, model, model. We have a lot of this in class, so we show them what have been done previously and how people like more like before and after. This is what they were able to produce in the first week, but guess what? They are the ones that did this one now, and they're like, whoa. So introduce them to the recording tool. Most of them have a mobile device. Let them know how it is used, and also give them feedback. If you want to, if you want, you can create a WhatsApp group or use Google Drive. Sometimes people say, oh, how do I save all of these things? As a teacher, the onus lies on you to make this project realistic, to make it work, to get the buy-in of all of your students. So if you have a class WhatsApp group, you can use that, or you can save this on a Google Drive. So even if they don't have WhatsApp group, when you come to class and you click on that Google Drive on your mobile phone, they can listen, and then it would help them know what they need to practice on. Okay. So these are examples of some popular radio shows across Africa. I know a lot of people from different countries, had the opportunity to listen to some of this. They had brilliant content. Back in Lagos, Let's Go Learning was very popular. Kokoka, Labe Igi Orombo, several ones. Please, if you remember any of them, feel free to put them in the chat box. In my classroom, at that time, a lot of people looked forward to these programs. I would hear them singing. Even up till now, I still remember the jingles, how we would sit down and get ready for all of these events. And then it was instructive and also interactive, because the host was able to pace in a way that helped the students write down. So if it was something that had to do with Greek, they would be able to write down. If it was something that had to do with yes, thank you very much for reminding me. Even the BBC had a lot of programs that they help students even up till now to learn. Yes. We have Kids Corner. Yes, Kids Corner is also, I think there was a show called Kids Corner as well. Thank you very much for that. So there were several ones, and they are still in existence. A lot of them are still in existence up till now. If you have content, guys, if you have content, there are a lot of radio stations that are looking for educational content that you can buy into. So if you have content that is authentic, please do not hesitate to reach out to a radio station. Write a pitch. Write a pitch. I personally believe that, if you collaborate, some people say, I don't know how to write, but look out in your school for people that, have access to those kind of resources, and get in touch with them to see how you can collaborate to reach out to a radio station if you have the right content. Trust me, a lot of people want to hear what you have to say. A lot of people want to hear what your class as well has to say. So these are some of the ones that we have done in the past. One of them is the smart learner. What is the smart learner? A lot of students are in school. So for me, I've had the opportunity to, work with younger kids and also work with adults. And when you find out what their goal for learning is, it varies. Some people want to learn because they feel their parents would, help them, will like there is incentive for them to learn. So they want to learn because they want to impress their friends, impress their family. Some want to learn because they want to find love. For my older students, some want to learn because they're in a new environment. Some want to learn because they want to start a business or they want to get a job and things like that. So we set those goals. Be specific with why you are learning this language or learning anything. If you know your why, it helps you, channel your learning process, helps you know what to focus on. And of course, how measurable is your goal? You are going to be here for the next 1 or 2 years. What do you think you can do to help you make your time here productive? This goal you have, is it attainable? Do you think is relevant to your stay here, relevant to what you have to do, and how timely is it for you to achieve it? Then another one that we did, this one I still do it now, it is a hit. Is what we call my 7 Wonder series. So here I show them a picture of the 7 wonders of the world and tell them that I bet whoever came up with this list has not been to your hometown. Everywhere around the world, in Africa, we have wonderful places that no one even talks about. How about you begin to develop it? How about you share something about your culture that no one knows? And we have had people discover hidden talents in their homes. Some didn't even know that the reason why they have this, they have this flair for science is because their grandfather used to be some kind of tech artist, or their great grandfather, and they were able to, trace some skills that they've had in their ancestry. Sometimes they are able to talk about places that they didn't even know about. For instance, in Nigeria, most people don't talk about Obunike Cave or the Obudu Cattle Ranch, or a lot of places that are wonders actually. So we get them to discover this and come up with short videos, or short audios rather, of what makes that place a wonder. And they love to explore, and we also love to learn when they do this. And of course, the excellent learner, this is where we try to use content-based learning to talk about different things. So I want to learn how to cross the street. I want to learn how to write a letter to my friend. I want to learn how to use construct, grammar. I want to learn a specific language rule. I want to learn music, but I need to learn this language. So then we also it's really there's no limit to what you can do with all of these things. All right. So let's move on now to mobile phones. Mobile phones as a low-tech resource, direct outreach. So here you can identify telecommunication companies in your region that provide toll-free lines. I know that in some places this is not possible, but if you cannot get toll-free lines, please utilize instant messaging apps like WhatsApp. WhatsApp is another platform that you can use to learn. If your students do not have their mobile phones, you can include their parents, but you don't. Most times people make the mistake of opening WhatsApp group and not even telling those you want to add why you want to add them. Send a letter to their parents. If you teach young learners, let them know that you want to include them in this WhatsApp group for the benefit of their children. And then you can pass on information. But like we know, a lot of times people's attention span can drift if it's too long. So as much as possible, straight to the point, keep it interactive, keep it short, and keep it fun. Okay. And of course, collaborative spirit. I've touched on this earlier on. With um, co-creation in mind, you should identify teachers who can work with you to create relevant content. No one is a know-all. No one has all the keys or all the answers to everything. There are teachers in your class or in your school that also want to collaborate. Find out those that have the same work ethics with you. Find out those that share the same values with you, and come up with different content. This is where content and language integrated learning comes in. I remember here I have had students, and I still have students that came in recently who are focused on music. So now we're creating content with the music teacher on how they can, for instance, talk about their concerts, because some of them are prodigies. They have access to go to concert. How can you engage your audience? How can you talk about this musical piece that you just want to present? How can you say it? So collaborating with the music teacher and of course the language teacher is always dynamic. It's always something that brings out the best in not just the student, but in the collaborative effort of the teachers. So these are also some of the other things that you can do with your mobile phone. Short short stories and song hotlines where people can call in. This was also very popular and is still popular in some countries, where people can call in and just get a short story. Sometimes it's even a story about Anansi. I remember we did this one time, and a lot of people got to know that there's actually a story behind the story. We got to learn about Anansi. We learned about some deities. because as much as possible, we've tried to keep it cultural. So we're trying to preserve culture and also help them learn their language. How can you talk about your culture if you don't stand for something? You fall for everything. How can you keep promoting your culture through language? So they get to learn short stories about different deities, about different things that make the culture unique. And of course, there is the dial a challenge, where we embed some grammatical errors, talk about something that is wrong. And like I said, you could call and the person says, hello, how you wear? And you're like, how you wear? No, that's not correct. So they get to write it down. So embed those things to see if they would notice those errors. And of course, we have the real world English, where we are looking for how to book appointments, and then idiom express. Here they get to learn common idioms and retell it. Retell the idiom. How best can you teach someone this idiom that you have learned? How best can you share with us what you have learned? We're going to talk more about that. And of course, the 7 wonders is also something that you can do with your mobile phone, something that you can teach them through recording and also through calls. So here I'm going to be showing you samples of some of those recordings that we have done. And so you can see how short and how simple it is to do them.
Everyone, thanks for listening
Can
to
you
the
hear?
wonders we've talked about. Today's
No, I
wonder is
can't, but I'm
Ghana.
sharing. Can anybody hear?
For listening to the wonders we've talked about.
Yes, I
Can
can hear.
I can
Today's
hear from
wonder
my
is
end.
Ghana.
Yes, I
Awesome.
can hear from
In
here.
the Thong Hills, there is a special place called
Yes, we can hear.
Denzu. Here, the Talensi people live in traditional homes made of earth. These homes have been there for a long time. They are a cool example of how people used to build. It's so unique and beautiful, and encourage you to visit. And I hope to share another one with you next time when we explore more wonders. Thanks for listening.
Yeah. So this is less than 1 minute, and this student had to compress all she had to say about the tongue hill. This is another one. Let me share this one. I love this one a lot.
Hello everyone. Today I want to tell you about a special place in my country. Many people think of animals when they hear about wonders in Kenya, but there is more to see. This time, I'm talking about a very old town called Gendi. It's one of the best preserved towns from a time long ago and the first ever dug up in all of East Africa. Gendi shows a special beauty style you won't find anywhere else in Kenya. There's even a big well by the main mosque and a special tomb nearby shaped like an 8-side stop sign. Deep in the forest, you can also find a palace built hundreds of years ago. Can you guess where this amazing town is? That's right, Kenya. Join me next time as I share another word with you. Thank you.
Yes. So for time, I will just share this too. But then the idea of this is also to help them preserve their culture, like I said. Okay. So these are some of the activities that we did with a phone recorder, and they love it because they are teaching about their culture and also learning. So it's kind of like I would say, it's like a symbiotic kind of relationship that we have going in class, but they always look forward to it. So you can recommend a holiday destination or a favorite place that you would love for them, that they would love to visit, and have them talk about it. It's not just about their own countries. Have them talk about somewhere else that they think is a wonder. I shared my own wonder in the class. I also did my own recording. This is me and my family, and of course my friends, and we talked about different places that I have been and places that I would love to be. So make it fun, but always have a goal in mind. What do we hope to achieve with this wonder? What skill are we looking to develop with this wonder, or any of these activities that I have shared with you? So please, in the chat box one more time, if you have experimented with radio programs, please share with us in the chat box. And do you think your students will enjoy such culture inclusive games or radio programs? So please share in the chat box if you think it's something that is realistic, something that you can do in your class. Oh, yes. Next Tuesday is World Day for Cultural Diversity. I think I got that right. So, I mean, this is a good time for you to get your students to discover more about their culture and not just keep it to themselves, but share it with the class. That way we preserve culture and we're still learning. All right. So this is one more thing I would like us, this is something that we do in our class as well, where we get to guess the idiom. So we show them some of the idioms and have them express it the best way possible. How do you think you can talk about this idiom to someone or share with someone who has no idea what this idiom is? So this is one of them. Who can guess what this idiom is? Who can guess what this student is trying to say with this idiom? Let's see in the chat box. Who can guess what the student was trying to say? Let me look at the chat box. Can you guess what idiom the student was trying to? Okay. Is this one, the student was trying to communicate and say it is not rocket science. It is not rocket science. That was the idea behind this. And look at these two. These are two other idioms. What do you think the student was trying to communicate? It's a future jet plane. Yes, you can do weather forecasting. Okay, but this is an idiom. This is an idiom the student was trying to talk about. What do you think this idiom means? Let me see in the chat box. What do you think the student was trying to say? Yes, don't add salt to the wound. Don't put adding salt to injury. Adding salt to injury. Yes, exactly. And the other one is what? Under the weather, not a waterbed. Under the weather, yes. The student was trying to teach us how the student understood the idiom under the weather and drew this, and of course adding salt to injury. Yes, so these are different ways. Have them express it. It mustn't even be with pictures. It could be, mimics or role play, different ways, or even flashcards, whatever it is you want to use. But remember, always stay with the goal of the lesson. Why are we teaching this? Why are we teaching this? And as much as possible, keep it simple. So who then is the disadvantaged learner? Who then is the disadvantaged learner? Of course, not the learner who lacks fancy tech, but the one we fail to reach with the resources at hand. We know it is a problem. We admit that we do not have, as much as we want to have, that fancy picture in the first slide. It's not our reality. The truth is, disadvantage isn't defined by limited resources. It is defined by a lack of resourcefulness. It is defined by a lack of us going out of the box to create that equity in our classroom. Every educator has the power to ignite potential regardless of the budget. That's the reality we face. When life throws you lemon, as much as possible, make some lemonades out of it. Empowerment, equity, and education for all will make our students and make us feel fulfilled as teachers. Thank you very much for listening. And you can find me on X or Instagram with this account. My name still remains Nnenne Ben-Ekechukwu, and I'll be handing over to Linda. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nnenne. That was so inspirational. Lots of lovely ideas. We have 5 minutes or so now we've had a few questions in the chat already. One from Fozia in Ethiopia was, how do we reconcile this creativity level with the curriculum, the work that you have to cover for the year? Any answers to that one?
That's a very good question. Like I said, stay with the goal. If you have a curriculum that you have to teach, the idea is how can you make the learning, how can you deconstruct, make it in such a way that the message will be passed. Most times students get bored. Attention span drifts a lot. So how can you incorporate any of this into your curriculum? Sometimes you don't have to follow it, of course, follow the curriculum, but then look for ways that you can make it creative in your class.
Yeah, so it's about covering the curriculum in a
Yeah.
different way, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah, in a different
exactly.
course. Yeah, great. There was another question from Zeni, also in Ethiopia. Is mobile phone counted as low resource?
That's a very good question. So what kind of mobile phone? We have different, if you're using an Apple product or an iPhone, maybe that's high tech. But then you can still, the idea is for you to use what is available at hand. Sometimes mobile phones can be, that's why it's called mobile assisted language learning. It can be low tech if you're using just the recording tool. So now we're not looking at using internet, it's just the recording tool on your device, which does not need any form of technology. It's just the mobile phone itself.
Great answers. There was another question from Justine in Gabon. AI, artificial intelligence, is invading language teaching. Is it a threat to natural intelligence? Now, that's a very big question, isn't it? That doesn't have much to do with your low-tech resources, but would you like to have a go? What do you feel about AI being a threat, maybe to teaching or natural intelligence?
So one thing that I have learned over time is whatever you persecute grows. So if we begin to see AI as a tool or as an enemy, it doesn't stop the fact that that is where the world is going, whether you see it as unfortunate or not, but that's the reality. But what you want to do is know how to balance the situation. We know that AI is, the new norm, but you don't want to present AI as an enemy to your students because that's where the world is going. But then again, let them not lose the value in, natural or conservative or traditional way of doing things. Look for a way to incorporate it if you can. But if it's not possible, that should not be an excuse as not to deliver on a good lesson or have an effective class time.
You're right. Yeah, I agree. We need to embrace it, don't we? This is the way the world's
Yes.
going. But we also need to remember, as Amrita in the chat has just said, AI is part of our world, but must be used responsibly. And we have to bring in critical thinking with it as well, don't we?
Absolutely.
Okay, there's one more question, I think, here from El Haj in Senegal, I think. Yes, in Senegal. How can we develop our creativity? Lots of your ideas were about creative uses. How can we develop this?
I would say plug into the BBC. Most of the things that you see here, nothing I have said here is new. It's just me trying to spin it around. So plug into communities and places like this where you get, teachers who have tried things and, be open to suggestions and come up with your own. Take advantage of your community and the networks around you. I believe you would get some kind of inspiration. And of course, collaboration, work with someone. It's always helpful when you work as a group.
Great answers. Yeah, lovely. I don't think there are any more questions. Over to you, Steve.